What if the greatest danger wasn't the enemy's blade, but the battle raging inside a warrior's heart? This story takes you into the untamed lands of the Old West, where a forced marriage becomes the spark for a journey neither of them expected. Thank you so much for watching and for all your comments. Let me know at the end if you liked the story and where you're watching from and why you're following this. The harsh Texas sun beat down on the small frontier settlement of Willow Creek as dust swirled through the main street. Sarah Bennett stood at her father's general store, arranging jars of preserved fruits, when she heard the commotion outside. Riders were approaching. Not the usual travelers or local ranchers, but Comanche warriors on painted horses. "Papa!" she called, her voice trembling. "They're coming!" Thomas Bennett emerged from the back room, his weathered face grim. "Get inside, Sarah. Now!" The town had maintained an uneasy peace with the nearby Comanche tribe for almost a year. Trade had been established, boundaries respected, but something was different today. Sarah could feel it in the tension that hung in the air like the coming of a storm. Through the window, she watched as the warriors dismounted, their leader tall and imposing. He wore an eagle feather in his long black hair, and scars decorated his copper skin. This was Swift Arrow, the most feared Comanche warrior in the territory. Stories of his ferocity in battle had reached even the most remote settlements. "That's Swift Arrow," whispered her father. "Stay quiet." The settlement's mayor, along with several men including Sarah's father, stepped out to meet the Comanche delegation. Sarah strained to hear their conversation through the partially open door. "The water in our lands runs dry," Swift Arrow said in surprisingly clear English. "Your people have diverted the creek that feeds our hunting grounds." The mayor shifted uncomfortably. "We've had a dry season. We needed the water for our crops." "Water that was promised to remain untouched," Swift Arrow responded, his voice dangerously low. "Our agreement has been broken." Sarah watched as her father stepped forward. "Perhaps we can negotiate a new agreement. We need the water, but we can find a way to share it fairly." Swift Arrow's dark eyes scanned the gathered townspeople, then suddenly locked with Sarah's through the window. She gasped and stepped back, but it was too late. He had seen her. "I have a proposal," Swift Arrow announced, still holding Sarah's gaze. "A union between our peoples. A marriage to bind our agreement in blood and honor." The mayor frowned. "What kind of marriage?" Swift Arrow pointed directly at the store. "Her, the daughter of the trader. She will become my wife, and in return, we will allow you to keep half of the water." Sarah's heart stopped. The room seemed to spin around her as her father's voice rose in protest. "No, my daughter is not a bargaining chip." But the mayor was already considering the offer. "Thomas, this could bring lasting peace. Think of the settlement." "I will not sacrifice my daughter." Sarah, hands trembling, stepped onto the porch. "Papa, what's happening?" The Comanche warriors turned to look at her, and Swift Arrow's gaze was intense, evaluating, not lustful or cruel, but measuring, as if weighing her worth as more than just a woman. "You would be treated with honor," Swift Arrow said directly to her. "As the wife of a war chief." Sarah felt her throat tighten. I can't." Her father put a protective arm around her shoulders. "This discussion is over. Find another way to settle this dispute." Swift Arrow's expression darkened. "Then prepare for war. When the moon is full, we will come for the water and more." He mounted his horse in one fluid motion. "Or you can send her to our camp before then, and there will be peace." As the Comanche rode away, the townspeople erupted in fearful discussion. Sarah felt the weight of their stares, heard their whispered suggestions that perhaps her sacrifice was worth the safety of them all. That night, as Sarah lay in bed, she overheard her father arguing with the mayor and other town leaders. "The Comanche will slaughter us all," the mayor insisted. "Our men are farmers, not soldiers." "So I should just hand my daughter over to a savage?" her father shouted. "Swift Arrow may be fierce, but he is known to honor his word," the sheriff interjected. "She would be safer than all of us if the Comanche attack." Sarah wrapped her arms around herself, tears streaming down her face. The full moon was just 3 days away. 3 days to decide if she would sacrifice herself for the town that now seemed all too willing to sacrifice her. The next morning, Sarah found her father sitting alone at the kitchen table, his head in his hands. "Papa," she said softly. I've been thinking about what Swift Arrow said. Thomas looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. Sarah, don't. I won't let them take you. She sat beside him, taking his rough hands in hers. If I don't go, people will die. Our friends, our neighbors. She swallowed hard. Maybe it won't be as terrible as we fear. You've traded with the Comanche. You've said they have a code of honor. Honor? Her father's voice broke. What honor is there in taking a woman from her home, her family? What honor is there in letting others die when I could prevent it? Sarah countered, surprising herself with her own courage. As dawn broke on the third day, Sarah packed a small bundle of belongings. Her decision had been made. She would go to the Comanche camp before the full moon rose, before blood could be shed. Her father begged her to reconsider, but Sarah had made up her mind. I'm choosing this, Papa, she said, embracing him tightly. This is my decision. As she mounted her horse and rode toward the Comanche territory, Sarah felt a strange calm settle over her. Fear still twisted in her stomach, but also a grim determination. Swift Arrow might be the most feared warrior in the territory, but she would show him that Thomas Bennett's daughter had courage of her own. The Comanche camp sprawled across the valley, dozens of teepees arranged in a semicircle beneath the vast Texas sky. As Sarah approached, children playing among the dwellings spotted her and ran to alert the adults. Women paused in their work, men gathered their weapons, and all eyes turned toward the lone white woman on horseback. Sarah's throat went dry. Her hands trembled on the reins, but she kept her back straight, her chin high. She had chosen this path. She would walk it with dignity. Swift Arrow emerged from the largest teepee, flanked by 2 warriors. His expression revealed nothing as he strode toward her. Without a word, he reached up and helped her dismount, his strong hands firm but not rough. You came before the full moon, he said, his voice deep and measured. Sarah nodded, finding her voice with effort. To prevent bloodshed. A flicker of surprise crossed his face, quickly masked. You will be my wife, he stated. Not a question, but a declaration. You understand this? I understand that this marriage will guarantee peace between your people and mine, Sarah replied carefully. That's why I'm here. Swift Arrow studied her face, then looked to the gathered tribe members. This woman comes to us in peace, he announced. She will become my wife at tomorrow's ceremony. She is to be treated with respect. An older woman stepped forward, her face lined with years but her eyes sharp. Come, daughter of the white trader, I will prepare you. Sarah followed the woman, whom she learned was named Morning Bird, Swift Arrow's mother. Inside a teepee fragrant with herbs and smoke, Morning Bird inspected Sarah critically. You are afraid, she said in accented English. Sarah didn't deny it. Yes. Good. Only fools feel no fear. Morning Bird handed her a dress of soft deerskin. My son is a hard man, shaped by hard times, but he is just. Remember that. The night passed slowly. Sarah lay awake on a bed of furs, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the camp, distant singing, the crackling of fires, the soft nickering of horses. When dawn broke, Morning Bird entered with several younger women. It is time, she announced. They dressed Sarah in the ceremonial garments, braided her hair with beads and feathers, and painted symbols on her hands. All the while, they spoke among themselves in their language, occasionally translating bits of conversation. The warriors respect that you came willingly, a young woman named Little Fawn told her. It shows courage. I didn't feel very courageous, Sarah admitted. Little Fawn smiled slightly. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is acting despite it. The ceremony took place as the sun reached its zenith. The entire tribe gathered in a circle, drums beating a steady rhythm. Swift Arrow waited at the center, dressed in ceremonial buckskins with an elaborate headdress. Sarah was led to stand before him, her heart pounding so loudly she was certain everyone could hear it. An elder stepped forward, speaking in Comanche, then in broken English for Sarah's benefit. Words about union, about strength, about binding 2 spirits together. Swift Arrow and Sarah exchanged items. He gave her a necklace of polished stones. She gave him a small silver locket that had belonged to her mother. With this exchange, you are now one, the elder pronounced. What the spirits have joined, let no one separate. Swift Arrow took her hand, his calloused palm warm against hers. "You are now Swift Arrow's wife," he said. "You will be called White Dove among my people." The celebration continued into the evening. Sarah sat beside Swift Arrow as the central fire blazed, accepting congratulations from tribal members. Food was shared, stories told, songs sung. Through it all, her new husband remained mostly silent, occasionally translating or explaining a custom, but never showing affection or warmth. When the festivities finally died down, Swift Arrow led Sarah to his teepee, now their teepee. Inside, furs and blankets formed a comfortable sleeping area. Weapons hung from the support poles, alongside shields and ceremonial items. Sarah stood awkwardly, uncertain what was expected of her. Swift Arrow removed his ceremonial clothing, setting aside his headdress and shirt. When he noticed her discomfort, he paused. "You fear I will force myself upon you," he stated bluntly. Sarah couldn't deny it. "Will you?" Swift Arrow shook his head once. "A warrior takes by force from his enemies, not his wife." He indicated a separate pile of furs across the teepee. "You will sleep there. When you no longer flinch at my approach, then we will speak of a true marriage." Relief washed over Sarah, followed by confusion. "Then why take me as your wife at all?" "The union brings peace," he replied. "And you showed courage coming here. Such courage deserves respect." He studied her face. "Rest now. Tomorrow you begin learning our ways." That night, lying on her furs, Sarah listened to Swift Arrow's steady breathing from across the teepee. She had expected many things: violation, cruelty, indifference. She had not expected respect. The days that followed established a routine. Morning Bird and the other women taught Sarah the skills expected of a Comanche wife: preparing food, tanning hides, gathering plants for medicine and dye. The work was hard but satisfying in its way, and Sarah found herself adapting more quickly than she'd anticipated. Swift Arrow himself remained distant, leaving early each morning to hunt or meet with other warriors, returning in the evenings to eat in silence. But Sarah noticed how he watched her, evaluating her progress, noting her interactions with his people. One evening, as they sat before the fire in their teepee, Sarah gathered her courage. "Why did you choose me?" she asked. There must have been other ways to resolve the water dispute. Swift Arrow was silent for so long that Sarah thought he might not answer. Finally, he set aside the arrow he'd been fletching. "I saw you many times, when I came to trade with your father," he said. "You were kind to all, even to my warriors when others showed fear or hatred. And you have fire in your spirit." His dark eyes met hers. Such a spirit should not be wasted on some weak settlement man who would dim it. Sarah blinked in surprise. "You've been watching me all this time?" A slight nod. "A warrior studies what he values." The words hung between them, unexpectedly intimate. For the first time, Sarah saw Swift Arrow not as her captor, or even merely as her husband in name, but as a man, complex, observant, and perhaps capable of feelings deeper than she had credited him with. That night, as a storm rolled across the plains, thunder shaking the teepee, Sarah found herself moving her sleeping furs closer to his. Not touching, not yet, but closer. It was a small step, but in that moment, it felt monumental. 1 month into her life among the Comanche, Sarah found herself standing at the edge of the camp, gazing toward the distant horizon where Willow Creek lay. The longing for home had never fully disappeared, but it had changed shape, becoming less sharp, more like a dull ache that flared occasionally rather than a constant pain. "You miss your father's settlement." Swift Arrow's voice came from behind her. Sarah turned, surprised to find him there. Usually at this hour, he would be meeting with the tribal council or training young warriors. "Yes," she admitted, "but not as much as I expected to." Swift Arrow moved to stand beside her, his presence solid and warm in the cool morning air. The heart can find home in unexpected places. The philosophical observation surprised her. In their weeks of marriage, Swift Arrow had shown himself to be practical, direct, and sparing with words. These moments of depth were rare, and Sarah had come to treasure them. "My father will be worried," she said softly. "I've had no way to send word that I'm well." Swift Arrow considered this. "Tomorrow I will take you to see him." Sarah's eyes widened. "Truly? A brief visit only," he cautioned. and we will bring warriors for protection. Not all in your settlement wish for peace." The prospect of seeing her father again filled Sarah with joy, but also trepidation. How would he see her now? Would he recognize the changes in her? Would he still consider her his daughter? Or would he see only a woman who had become Comanche? The next morning, Sarah dressed carefully in a mixture of her original clothing and Comanche garments. Swift Arrow watched her preparations with interest. "You stand between two worlds now," he observed. Sarah nodded, braiding her hair in the Comanche-style Morning Bird had taught her. "I'm not sure where I belong anymore. Perhaps belonging is not about place but about people," Swift Arrow said, adjusting his weapons belt. "Come." The others wait. Their party consisted of Swift Arrow, Sarah, and 5 warriors. They rode toward Willow Creek as the sun climbed higher in the sky. Sarah felt her anxiety grow with each mile. By the time the settlement came into view, her stomach was in knots. People stopped and stared as the Comanche party rode down the main street. Doors closed, children were hurried inside, and several men reached for rifles before recognizing Sarah among the group. They dismounted outside her father's store. The door flew open and Thomas Bennett rushed out, stopping short at the sight of his daughter flanked by Comanche warriors. "Sarah!" His voice broke on her name. "Papa!" Sarah ran to him, embracing him tightly. "I've missed you so much." Thomas held her at arm's length, examining her face, her clothing, her braided hair. "Are you all right? Have they hurt you?" "I'm well, Papa," she assured him. "They've treated me with respect." His eyes moved to Swift Arrow, who stood watching their reunion with an unreadable expression. "And him? Has he?" Sarah understood the unspoken question and felt her cheeks flush. "Swift Arrow has been honorable," she said quietly, "more so than many white men would have been in his position." Relief and confusion warred on her father's face. He gestured toward the store. "Come inside, both of you. The others can wait here." Swift Arrow nodded to his warriors, who took up positions outside while he followed Sarah and her father into the store. Inside, Thomas pulled out chairs for them at the small table where he kept his accounts. "The water agreement has been honored," Thomas said. "No more has been diverted than what was agreed." Swift Arrow nodded. "My scouts have reported this. The peace holds." An awkward silence fell. Sarah looked between the 2 men, her father gray-haired and careworn, and her husband, strong and stoic. 2 worlds indeed. "Are you happy, Sarah?" her father finally asked, his voice gentle. The question caught her off guard. Was she happy? She had not thought in those terms. She had been focused on survival, on adaptation, on learning. But happiness? "I am finding my way," she answered carefully. "The Comanche ways are different, but there is beauty in them. Strength. Honor." She glanced at Swift Arrow. "I am learning to see with new eyes." Her father seemed to age before her eyes. "You've changed." "Yes," she acknowledged. "I had to." Thomas turned to Swift Arrow. "And what of you, Comanche? Did you take my daughter merely for politics, or do you value her?" Swift Arrow held the older man's gaze steadily. "White Dove brings strength to my teepee. Her spirit honors my people." He paused. "She is valued." "Not love," Sarah noted. "Not affection, but value." Perhaps that was the most a Comanche warrior would admit to. And yet there had been moments when she'd caught Swift Arrow watching her with an expression that hinted at deeper feelings beneath his stoic exterior. Their visit lasted only an hour. Before they left, Sarah's father pressed a package into her hands. Letters, a small book of poetry, and her mother's Bible. "To remind you of who you are," he whispered, embracing her. As they rode away from Willow Creek, Sarah felt a strange mix of emotions. Sadness at leaving her father, yet also a pull toward the Comanche camp that she couldn't deny. Swift Arrow rode beside her, silent but watchful. "Thank you," she said simply, "for allowing me to see him." Swift Arrow nodded. A daughter should know her father lives well. The journey back was quiet until they were ambushed midway. Shots rang out from a rocky outcropping, and one of the warriors fell from his horse with a cry of pain. Swift Arrow immediately pushed Sarah down, shielding her body with his own as he drew his rifle. "Stay low," he ordered, returning fire alongside his warriors. Sarah recognized the attackers. The Garner brothers, troublemakers from a ranch outside Willow Creek who had always resented the peace treaty with the Comanche. The firefight was brief but intense. When it ended, 2 of the Garners lay dead, and 1 Comanche warrior was wounded but alive. Swift Arrow himself had taken a bullet that grazed his arm, tearing through muscle but missing bone. "You're hurt," Sarah gasped, tearing strips from her underskirt to bind the wound. Swift Arrow watched her work, his face impassive despite the pain. "You do not tremble," he observed. "I've dressed wounds before," she replied, tying off the bandage. "My father taught me." "No," Swift Arrow said, his hand capturing hers. "Your hands are steady when you tend an injured Comanche. Many white women would let us bleed." Their eyes met, and something shifted between them. A recognition, an acknowledgement of change. Sarah felt her breath catch. "You are my husband," she said softly. "I would not let you bleed." That night, back at the camp, Sarah tended Swift Arrow's wound properly in their teepee. As she worked by firelight, he watched her face, studying her concentration, the gentle precision of her movements. "The Garner brothers acted alone," she said, breaking the silence. "My father would never have condoned such an attack." "I know this," Swift Arrow replied. "Your father is an honorable man." He paused. "Like his daughter." Sarah finished bandaging his arm and sat back on her heels. "Among your people, what makes a marriage real?" she asked suddenly. Swift Arrow's expression flickered with surprise. "Why do you ask this?" "Because I've been your wife in name for a moon cycle now," she said, courage rising in her. "Yet we live as strangers who share a dwelling." For the first time she saw uncertainty in his eyes. "A true marriage is of 2 spirits joined willingly," he said slowly. "Not just bodies, not just words spoken in ceremony." "And if both spirits are willing?" Sarah asked, her heart pounding. Swift Arrow reached out, his fingers hovering just shy of touching her cheek. "Are you willing, White Dove? Not from duty or fear, but from your heart?" Sarah leaned forward, closing the distance between them until his palm cradled her face. "I'm beginning to understand that courage takes many forms," she whispered, "including the courage to embrace a new life, a new heart." That night, their separate sleeping furs became one. Under the vast Texas sky, as the campfires burned low and the stars wheeled overhead, Sarah Bennett, now White Dove, found herself truly becoming a wife to the man she had once feared. 6 months had transformed Sarah's life entirely. The Comanche camp no longer felt foreign but familiar, its rhythms and customs woven into the fabric of her days. The language that had once sounded harsh and incomprehensible now flowed from her tongue with increasing confidence. And Swift Arrow, the warrior she had been forced to marry, had become her husband in every sense. The morning dawned crisp and clear as Sarah emerged from their teepee. Swift Arrow had already left to lead a hunting party, and she found herself gravitating toward Morningbird's dwelling, where the older woman was preparing medicines. "Your hands have learned our ways quickly," Morningbird observed, as Sarah helped grind herbs into powder. "But your eyes still sometimes look toward the settlement." Sarah didn't deny it. "Part of my heart will always be there," she admitted, "just as part is now here." Morningbird nodded sagely. "This is the way of bridges. They must touch both shores." The metaphor struck Sarah deeply. A bridge, yes, that was what she had become. Not fully of either world, but spanning between them, connecting them. "My son smiles now," Morningbird said, changing the subject. "Before you came, his face was like stone." Sarah felt warmth rise to her cheeks. Swift Arrow's transformation had been subtle, but undeniable. The stoic warrior still commanded respect among his people, still led with strength and decisiveness. But in the privacy of their teepee, he had revealed another side, thoughtful, occasionally tender, even capable of laughter. "He has changed me as well," Sarah confessed. Their conversation was interrupted by shouts from the edge of camp. Warriors were returning, but their cries were not of triumph, but warning. Sarah rushed outside to see riders approaching fast, Swift Arrow at their head. "Soldiers!" came the cry. "Blue coats coming from the east." The camp erupted into organized chaos. Women gathered children, men prepared weapons, elders moved toward the center of the camp for protection. Sarah found herself caught in the middle, unsure where she belonged in this crisis. Swift Arrow dismounted in a fluid motion, striding directly to her. "The U.S. Army approaches," he said tersely. "A full company." "What do they want?" Sarah asked, fear clawing at her throat. "They claim to seek a white woman held captive," he replied, his eyes holding hers. "You." The words hit her like a physical blow. "But I'm not a captive. I came willingly. The Army believes what it wishes to believe." Swift Arrow's face was grim. "Some in your settlement have been spreading tales that you were taken by force, that you suffer abuse." Sarah's mind raced. The Garners. Must be them, trying to provoke conflict after their failed ambush. "We have little time," Swift Arrow said, taking her arm and leading her toward their teepee. "The soldiers demand to speak with you. If you wish to return to your people, I will not stop you." Sarah stopped short, staring at him in disbelief. "Return? You think I would choose to leave?" Something flashed in Swift Arrow's eyes. Hope, quickly suppressed. "You stand between two worlds, White Dove. I would not hold you if your heart pulls you elsewhere." "My heart is here," she said firmly, gripping his arm. "With you, with our people." The tension in his face eased slightly, but concern remained. "The soldiers may not accept your choice. They see a white woman among the Comanche and think only of rescue." "Then I will make them understand," Sarah declared. Within the hour, the cavalry unit approached the camp perimeter. The commanding officer, a Captain James Wilson, requested a parley. Swift Arrow, along with 3 other warriors and Sarah, met them in the neutral ground between the camp and the soldiers. "Mrs. Bennett," the captain addressed her immediately, "we've come to escort you back to civilization. You're safe now." Sarah stepped forward, conscious of how she must appear to these men in her Comanche dress, her hair braided with beads, her skin tanned by months in the sun. "I appreciate your concern, Captain, but it is misplaced. I am here by choice." Captain Wilson frowned. "Ma'am, we have reports that you were abducted and forced into marriage with this savage." He nodded toward Swift Arrow, whose expression remained impassive despite the insult. "Those reports are false," Sarah stated clearly. "I came here as part of a peace agreement between Willow Creek and the Comanche. I am Swift Arrow's wife willingly." The captain's expression hardened. "Mrs. Bennett, these savages may have intimidated you into saying these things. You can speak freely now." Sarah felt anger rising within her. "I speak freely always, Captain, and I would thank you not to refer to my husband or his people as savages." "Your husband?" The captain looked genuinely shocked. "Mrs. Bennett, surely you can't mean—" "I mean exactly that," Sarah interrupted. "Swift Arrow is my husband, this is my home, and these are my people now." Captain Wilson shifted uncomfortably, glancing at his men. "Mrs. Bennett, your father is concerned for your welfare. He asked us to check on you." This gave Sarah pause. "My father, but he saw me just months ago. He knows I'm well." "Nevertheless, he worries," the captain insisted. "Perhaps if you return with us just for a visit, to reassure him." Swift Arrow stepped forward. "If White Dove wishes to visit her father, I will escort her myself, as I have before." The standoff might have continued indefinitely, if not for the arrival of a lone rider from the direction of Willow Creek, Thomas Bennett himself. "Sarah," he called, dismounting quickly. "Papa." Sarah rushed to embrace him. "What are you doing here?" Thomas Bennett looked exhausted, as if he'd ridden through the night. "When I heard the cavalry was coming, I feared the worst. The Garner family has been spreading lies about your capture, trying to incite action against the Comanche." He turned to Captain Wilson. "Captain, my daughter is here by her own choice. There has been no abduction, no coercion." The captain frowned. "Mr. Bennett, are you certain? These people, Thomas interrupted firmly, have honored every agreement we've made with them, and my daughter has found a place among them that she values." Sarah felt tears welling in her eyes at her father's understanding. She squeezed his hand gratefully. Captain Wilson hesitated, clearly conflicted. The Garners claimed she was being held against her will, possibly abused. "The Garners," Thomas said with disgust, "have always wanted the Comanche lands for their cattle. They see my daughter's marriage as an obstacle to driving these people away." The captain looked between Sarah, her father, and Swift Arrow, who stood tall and dignified despite the threat surrounding him. Finally, the officer sighed. "It seems I've been misled. he admitted reluctantly. Mrs. He hesitated. Mrs. Swift Arrow, I apologize for the intrusion. Relief washed over Sarah. Thank you, Captain. Will you assure your superiors that all is well here? That the peace between Willow Creek and the Comanche should be protected, not disrupted? Captain Wilson nodded. I'll report what I've seen and heard. He turned to Swift Arrow. You have an unusual wife, Chief. Swift Arrow's mouth curved in a rare public smile. Yes, she builds bridges where others see only chasms. As the soldiers departed, Sarah stood between her father and her husband, the physical embodiment of the bridge Morningbird had described. Thomas looked at his daughter with a mixture of sadness and pride. You've found your place, he said softly. Sarah nodded. Not the place I expected, but yes. Will you come visit soon? He asked. The store isn't the same without you. We will come, Swift Arrow answered before Sarah could, when the moon is full again. And perhaps, he glanced at Sarah, perhaps you would visit our camp as well, to know your daughter's new home. Thomas Bennett looked surprised, then thoughtful. I would like that, he said finally. After her father departed, Sarah and Swift Arrow stood together at the edge of the camp, watching the dust settle on the horizon. You could have gone with them, Swift Arrow said quietly, back to a life of greater comfort, among your own kind. Sarah turned to face him, taking both his hands in hers. Don't you understand yet? You are my kind now, too. She placed one of his hands over her heart. This beats for two peoples, two worlds, but it beats strongest for you. Swift Arrow pulled her close, a public display of affection rare among the Comanche. When I took you as wife, I sought only peace between our peoples, he confessed. I did not expect to find peace within myself. That evening, as the camp celebrated the peaceful resolution, Sarah sat beside Swift Arrow near the central fire. Morningbird approached, a knowing smile on her weathered face. The bridge grows stronger, she observed. Soon it will carry many travelers between worlds. Sarah understood the metaphor's expansion. What had begun as a forced union for peace had transformed into something greater, a true connection between communities, an opportunity for understanding. As the stars appeared overhead, Swift Arrow leaned close to whisper in her ear. The most difficult battle of my life was not against enemies with weapons, he said, but against my own heart, which feared to love a woman from another world. Sarah smiled, leaning into his strength. And now I know that the greatest courage is found not in fighting, he replied, but in loving across boundaries others fear to cross. Under the vast Texas sky, Sarah Bennett, white dove of the Comanche, had found her true home, not in a place, but in the space between worlds where understanding bloomed like wildflowers after rain. The bridge she had become would stand strong through the seasons to come, carrying hope and peace where once there had been only division and fear.